Hi everyone. Today we are going to learn an important and very practical topic in mathematics, that is understanding and applying ratio, rate and proportion. These concepts help us compare quantities in everyday life like prices, speed, recipes, distance, and even exam results. In this lecture, we will understand what a ratio is, how a rate compares different units, what a proportion means, and how to apply them in real life situations. In our daily life, we usually compare things like in prices. We compare which cereal is cheaper per ounce. That is, while buying a particular type of cereal, we try to buy cheaper thing. For example, one type of cereal is of suppose 3 point suppose 3.89 and another type of cereal is suppose of 5.29. Now, which one is cheaper? So for this, you need to check the quantity. Suppose its quantity is, or its weight is suppose 21.6 ounce, and its unit is oz, and this is suppose 18 ounce. Then to find cost per ounce, you need to divide price divided by ounces. So when we divide price by its weight, then we are getting, this will become 0.18 per ounce, and this type of cereal will become about 0.29 per ounce. So in this case, this one is better value because the cost per ounce is lower. So we will try to buy this type of cereal. We sometimes compares who runs faster, like for example a cheetah or a horse, a lion or a tiger. So for comparing, we use, in this case, who runs faster, we use speed. So speed is obtained by dividing distance traveled over a particular time. So for this, speed is equal to distance covered in a specific time. While cooking and using a particular recipe, we need to know that, or our interest is that this recipe will be enough for how many people. For example, if a recipe serves 4 people, for example, a particular type of recipe serves 4 people, and we want to serve it for 10 people, then we need to use some calculation. And that will be, like, suppose that will be new serving divided by original serving, and the resultant value, suppose the new serving is of 10 people and the original serving is of 4 people, then the resultant value is of 2.5. So for the new serving, we multiply each ingredient by 2.5. So this way we can manage to serve or cook for more people. Here in the first case we are using ratio. In the second case we are using rates, and in the third case we are using proportion. So let's learn ratio, rates and proportion separately in detail. Let's discuss rate first. Now we know that to compare fairly we use ratios, rates and proportion. For example, in case of running, person A runs 100 meters in 15 seconds, person B runs 400 meters in 60 seconds. Then in this situation, who is faster? That is, per second distance traveled by a person will determine fastest person in this run. So in this situation we use rate. Let's define rate. Rate is the ratio comparing two different units. Remember that these two different units is important to note for rate. Like here, unit is meter and another unit is second. So we are comparing two different units. So when comparing two different units, we use rate. Hence, rate is a ratio comparing two different units. Whereas unit rate is the rate when the second quantity is 1. Now let's learn. For example, we have two situations. This is the first situation and this is the second situation. In the first situation, the 5 pence cost $10. So this unit rate will be its price divided by its quantity. So we get $2 per pen. In the second case, 240 kilometer is covered or can be covered in 4 hours. So the situation is distance covered divided by time taken. So unit rate we are obtained in this case is 60 kilometer per hour. So hence its definition states that unit rate is equal to quantity divided by number of units. Now rate can be obtained using divide then multiply strategy, the rate triangle, and comparing rates. So these are the 3 different ways to find the rate. Now to find rate using divide then multiply strategy, for any rate problem, we first find the unit rate, that is this. Find the unit rate, use this formula, and then multiply the resultant unit by the new amount. For example, 8 meters of fabric cost $64. This is the quantity of the fabric. So we need to find how much for 5 meters. So first solve this portion and then multiply with this. So first we will divide 64 divided by 8. So we are getting this $8 per meter. And then for 5 meter we will multiply this 8 with 5. To get this 40. So you can practice 5 to 6 similar problems with whole numbers, right? Meaning using no decimal numbers. Use whole numbers only, like here whole numbers are used. We can find rates by using the method of comparing rates. For example, consider online prices. For example, one item of 300 gram costs $4.5. Another item of 500 gram costs $7. Find unit price first and then compare. So you know how to find the unit price. It is already mentioned here, unit price, and then compare then which is better in price. Another method of finding rate is the rate triangle. Like this is a way to find the rate. In this case, for speed, distance, and and time, for finding rate, if we need to calculate speed, distance, or time, we need this rate triangle. So in this case, these are linked to each other in a triangle shape or a triangular shape. So to cover distance, you just multiply speed with time to find the covered distance. So this is how you can manage such type of things, or you can find rate in such situation where you need to find speed or distance or time. Here are examples, like you drive to 40 kilometer at 80 kilometer per hour. So how long means you need to find t. Another example is you run for 2 hours at 10 kilometer per hour. How far? How far you go? So you need to cover distance here. So by using this rate triangle, you can solve these example. Now for rate, this is an exercise. This is first question, this is the second question, this is the third question, this is the fourth question, and this is the fifth question. So solve this exercise for calculating the rate. Next comes ratio. A ratio compares two quantities but of same type. Rate is also a ratio. Ratio is just a fraction, like a fraction, that is a divided by b, where a is in numerator and b is in denominator. Rate is also a ratio, but that is a ratio of different units. So this is the main difference between ratio and rate. A's ratio compares two quantities. So here is an example. If a class has 10 boys and 20 girls, then the ratio of boys to girls is 10:20. We can simplify this. That is 10 ones are 10 and 10 twos are 20. So the ratio will become 1:2, and this will mean that for every one boy there are 2 girls, meaning the ratio of girls is more than the boys. There is another example. If there are 2 apples and 4 oranges, then the ratio of apples to oranges will be 2:4. After simplifying, we are getting 1:2. That is, for every one apple there are 2 oranges. We can write ratios in 3 different ways. We can write it like this: 2 ratio, that is colon type 4, 2/4, or 2:4. So ratio is simply a comparison. The first exercise is simplify ratios. The second is find missing term. The third is divide in a given ratio. And the fourth one is word problems. So you can attempt these exercises by the methods explained to you. The last one is proportion. A proportion is based on ratio. A proportion shows that two ratios are equal. That is left side of the equality sign and right side of the equality sign. That is one. This can be written as like 1:2 is equal to 2:4. That is, we can say that whether two ratios are equal or not. So this can be solved by cross multiplication. Like if we generalize it, if we denote one ratio with A divided by B and another ratio with C divided by D, then we can multiply, or we can use cross multiplication to obtain the unknown values. That is, A will go with D, A multiply with D is equal to B multiply with C, that is like this. AD is equal to BC. Now to find unknowns, we use proportion. You can solve this exercise. This is the second exercise. And in summary, I will say that rates help us measure, ratio help us compare, and proportion help us solve real world problems. Thank you all.